I used to bully my disabled brother for years. I know this will get a lot of hate, and yes, I deserve it. I am not looking for any validation or forgiveness. I know I am a piece of human trash. I just need to get this out. I have a brother who is 2 years older than me. He has suffered from a condition since birth that forces him to be in a wheelchair anytime he is out of bed. He cannot use his arms that well either. We used to have a great relationship until I turned 11 and I really started resenting the amount of attention he took from my parents and how much stress he put them under. I had to constantly help him, change him, feed him. I hated it. There was a few years in his life when he's so mean to my parents and it really made me resent him more. I realize now that I had no right to judge him and I will never know how difficult life is for him. I stopped hanging out with him and made more friends at school. I would tell my family all the fun I was having at school during dinner to make him feel bad. I started barely talking to him or acknowledge his presence. He would get frustrated to the point of tears to get my attention. It started escalating 2 years ago when I would purposely turn off the Wi-Fi and unplug the TV every time we had to leave the house so my brother could do nothing but sit in his wheelchair. I would purposely delete his favorite saved shows on the DVR. I would make fun of his speech, push things just out of his reach. I would act disgusted when I had to change or bathe him. It always made him feel bad and he would apologize. I made my own brother apologize for taking a dump. What the frick is wrong with me? But my fricking saint of a brother never told my parents. And he never let me have it. 3 weeks ago, he was trying to talk to me non-stop and I was just ignoring him. I got annoyed and wheeled him against his wishes to the backyard and placed him under an umbrella and went back inside. I fell asleep and realized I left him out there for 3 hours. When I went to bring him back inside he was in tears and wouldn't look at me. He was humiliated. I have always felt guilty about how I treated my brother all these years, but my anger towards him overpowered it. But seeing that look on his face affected me in a way that was different from before. I stopped all the bullying after that day. I couldn't even look him in the face, I was so ashamed. Last Sunday my brother told me he was glad I was his brother and friend. I couldn't even respond. I went to my room and cried. I'm freaking crying again typing this all out. When did I become an evil trash human being? Frick. I'm 17 and he's 19 now. I know there is nothing I can do to make up for the past 6 years. My brother will be returning with my mum from a specialist appointment tonight. I'm going to apologize to him and beg for his forgiveness tonight. I want to start being a freaking decent brother to him again. I am a healthy guy with no issues who chose to bully his only brother for something that wasn't even his fault. I am so ashamed of myself. Oh son, believe me, I know exactly what you're going through. I'm 6 years older than my brother who has cerebral palsy. He's physically functional, but he has the mental capacity of an 80-year-old. Until I was 6 I was a kid with a mother who gave me all the attention in the world. Then he was born. All the attention disappeared, childhood disappeared, and life became real, unkind, and challenging. At 16 my resentment for him was at its peak. I was a hormonal teenager with my own issues, but due to his health and his need, my mother had to devote all of her time to him. I wanted for nothing, but for all intents and purposes, I craved attention and love to the point where I full on hated him. I never showed it as bluntly as you did, but it was there and burning. I came out to my parents when I was 16. And I remember one night after having another round of fighting with my parents and being told some of the worst things a child could ever hear from his parents due to their inability to handle the fact that I was gay, I just went into my room, locked the door and cried. As I was crying my brother came into the room, completely oblivious to the goings on due to his inability to understand what it meant that I was gay. He sat on my bed and watched me cry. Then he put his hand on my leg and asked why I was crying. I attempted to explain to him that I was gay and what it meant and how our parents were not very happy about it. Then he just said, which I will never forget, "But does that mean that you are not going to be my brother anymore? Because that would be very sad. I love you Astro 493. I really do." All the hatred died that day. I realized that to this perpetual child I would always be the hero big brother who had the responsibility to care for him. And even though it's challenging and he couldn't repay in kind, his method of payment, exactly like your brother, is unending love. It's a rare and precious thing, my friend, to know that you're loved. You're still very young, so life hasn't shown you the value of love yet. I know that may seem like me jumping to a conclusion, but after having plowed through a couple more decades than yourself, I now realize it's the most damn important thing in the world. Our lives are much harder than they should have been, but we live our lives with strength and pride. He will always be challenging, but you will always be his brother, and he will always love you. Holy it. This moved me almost as much as this post. If I had money I would give you platinum. I am crying a lot right now. I'm disabled. Not to the extent that I can't bathe or change myself, but I can't cook or clean or walk for very long. I used to be able-bodied until I was 19, and able to help cook and clean etc. like anyone else. I've been disabled for 3 years now and I feel like my younger brother resents me now. He's 19, and since my dad moved out this year he's had to pick up some extra slack and help my mum out with cooking and cleaning, and I think he resents me for it. I've always thanked him and said how much I appreciate it, and so does my mom, but it doesn't seem to change anything. He just gets quietly annoyed and then talks about how he can't wait to move out. I hope one day we can reach the stage you and your brother are at. It's hard being the carer, but it's really hard being the burden too. I've been almost in your brother's shoes. I wasn't disabled before, but now I have epilepsy. Here's my story. My older brother died after a 2-year battle with leukemia when he was 22 and I was 17. But before that, he cruelly bullied me from when I was 5 until he left for college. He would hit me with metal and mop. He once held a knife to my throat, as a joke, and he regularly pinned me down and choked me or forcibly dropped water in my eyes as punishment for me doing something little brothers do, like call him a name or surprise tickle him. Not to mention verbal degradation. He never apologized or tried to make it up. However, after he died, his friends said he was always asking them how he could apologize to me and how to make it up to me. He thought I wanted nothing to do with him. When he found that he needed bone marrow, he thought I wouldn't give it to him, but I unquestioningly said yes. All I wanted was for him to talk to me at all. Tell me that he was proud I made it into a good school or that I reached the semi-finals in debate. Tell me how to talk to girls. Anything. I don't know if I'd ever have fully forgiven what he did, but I certainly would have gotten over it enough to have a healthy familial relationship. I only ever had one real conversation with him in his entire life. So just talk to him. Interact as often as possible in a positive way. Don't worry about planning what to say, let him decide. Ask him. Put him in charge of everything. I'm an open book if there's anything anyone wants to know. I'm sorry for your loss. This hurt to read, and I hope that OP can learn from it. You're a great brother, your brother knows that. This may get buried, but I just wanted to say that your story made me cry, because I lived this too. My sister was very cruel to me emotionally and physically and died unexpectedly in her early 30s. She never apologized to me or even acknowledged how awful she had been to me. Like you, I really just wanted to be friends with her and spent a big chunk of my childhood and young adult life trying to be. Having that unresolved between us is something I accept, but will probably hurt until the day I die. I am disabled and able since birth. I am so happy to know you want to treat your brother better. I have been told by my mum more than once that she doesn't love me more, because I am handicapped, and she does not know how to love me more. She rubs it in my face every time she wants to hang out with my brother and sister who are not disabled. I have never been jealous of my siblings. I like that our mum loves them. I know it would break their hearts if they found out our mum loves them more than me. I will never tell them. I have never resented them or whatever. I don't say this to you to make you feel bad. I just wanted to show you my support, even though our situations are polar opposites. I am sure your brother loves you unconditionally and will accept your apology. He is lucky to have a brother who loves him. Smiley face. I hope this can be the beginning of a beautiful friendship between you and your brother. Huge hug. I am rooting for both you and your brother during this painful time. I'm so sorry about your mother. And thank you for being so kind. I'm going to do everything I can to make it up to my brother. I promise. Smiley face. I have my fingers metaphorically crossed for you. I can't cross my fingers in real life. You are a sweetheart. This is one of the most uplifting threads I've ever come across. You are an angel. You deserve far better than the treatment you've received. I hope things get better for you. From what it sounds like, your brother is an excellently adjusted human being. Last Sunday my brother told me he was glad I was his brother and friend. What this sounds like to me is that he must have some understanding as to why you acted the way you did. It would be completely irrational for him to say this unless he had some ulterior motive. A motive to get through to you maybe. Based on my impression, I'd imagine he'd accept your apology. He seems to care more about being your brother than he does about getting revenge or expressing his anger. Definitely do it. I think you will both be extremely grateful. As for you calling yourself an evil trash human being, let me say something heart to heart. We used to have a great relationship until I turned 11 and I really started resenting the amount of attention he took from my parents. And how much stress he put them under. I had to constantly help him, change him, feed him. I hated it. There was a few years in his life when he's so mean to my parents and it really made me resent him more. You were hurt. Your love for your parents seems to be what initialized this. You felt neglected. You empathized with your parents. You felt like you had too much responsibility that you weren't ready for and probably shouldn't have been put under. Very often, I find that people don't understand the anger. Not anger in the sense of your sister coming home after a hard day of work to find her Auntie Anne's pretzels gone because you ate them, definitely not a true story, but the anger. The anger that keeps you up at night. The anger that starts in your chest before it could reach your brain. The anger that answers to no sense. The anger that seems to have captured your soul and is holding your sense hostage. The personal anger from deep within your most inner heart and mind. Nobody understands this anger, I've found. I feel it all too often. For my own reasons, of course. Apologize to your brother. I hope it goes well. Release your anger. If I can't, I'd be pleased to see you do it.